Hello everyone. So today we'll be discussing about three major types of traders that do tradings in the market. But before we start with that, we need to revise our concepts about interest rates. Okay. So you have studied simple interest and compound interest in school days. So simple interest is not of much interest to us. We would be focusing on compound interest because whenever we are talking about investments or whenever we are talking about share markets, we are generally going to earn interest repeatedly and the interest is going to get added to whatever we already have. So we are going to talk about compound interest. Now, if say I is the rate of interest, okay, so for example 10% rate of interest we express as 0.1, then at the end of say 2 years, the total amount by compound interest formula would be 1 plus I square into whatever the original amount was. Right, this is your formula for compound interest. Now, we are going to introduce a new concept called continuous compounding. So, what do I mean by continuous compounding? Okay, see, this 1 plus I square, when I say at the end of 2 years, we assume that I is the rate of interest per annum and that interest is paid only once, say at the end of the year. Okay. However, if the same interest is paid over say every month, so basically at the end of 1 year I still want 10% interest but it is paid over 12 months, then I can write it as 1 plus 0.1 by 12 raised to 12. Correct? Now instead of 12 months, so this I am writing for 1 year, okay, not for 2 years. So the same interest I am kind of dividing into 12 parts, but each part is being paid at the end of 1 month. Why this is not same as this? Because suppose this is 1 year. So if I am getting paid at the end of every month, then at this time point I get a part of that interest. So when we are talking about interest at this point, I am earning interest on the original capital plus this small part of interest that we received. Okay. Similarly, when we talk about this interest at this time point, we have to already take into consideration the interests that have been paid here. Okay. Hence, the formula changes. Now, this is for monthly thing. If I want to pay on a weekly basis, then it would become 1 plus 0.1 by 52. Let's assume 52 weeks raised to 52. Okay. So, in general, it would become 1 plus I by n raised to n if you are paying, if you are saying that the interest is paid n times. Okay, the same interest is distributed over n intervals and is paid at the end of every interval. And by continuous compounding we mean that practically like every second, so continuously you are earning interest. So we are letting this n to go to infinity. N was the number of times the interest is being paid, and we are saying that the interest is being paid almost instantaneously, like for every second. Then this is same as letting n to go to infinity, and we all know that limit of this would become e raised to I. Correct? Okay. So this is for single year. If you have for multiple years, then that t would come into picture. Okay. So it would become e raised to I t. Is it okay? Hence, this is the way in which we would treat continuously compounded interest, and in fact in most of our calculations we would deal with interest being compounded continuously. Okay, so please remember that we have to always take interest in terms of this factor. Okay, so now let us go back to the types of traders. So there are three types of people in the market. So whoever does market trading, that person can be categorized into one of the three types. First type is hedger, second is speculator, and third is arbitrager. Okay, so each of them have a different goal of doing trading and of course as a result of different objectives, their strategies of trading would also be different. So let us see one by one. So what is a hedger? So hedger is basically a person who does trading only to cover expected losses, okay, or to reduce uncertainty. So hedger is a person who uses trading to reduce the losses, okay, so like an insurance, okay, a person who uses trading to reduce the losses due to uncertainty. So this is exactly like insurance. So hedger wants to just protect his or her current investment. That is the main aim of a hedger. Protect his or her current investments. Protect from what? Protect from future market movements. Because we know that markets can go up and down. So what do you mean by market going up, market going down? Some people may not be even comfortable with that. So let us discuss it in detail. We'll take an example so it would be clear. So suppose currently a person owns share of a certain, let's say the person owns 100 shares of a company. Okay, person owns 100 shares of a company and price of each share today is say rupees 500. Okay, price of each share today is rupees 500. So what is the current total worth of his shares? It would be 50,000. 500 into 100. So currently he has 50,000 rupees invested in shares. Now you might have seen that every day share prices can either go up or down. Okay, they need not stay constant. They keep changing continuously. In fact, they keep changing not just every day, they keep changing continuously. Even throughout a day, they keep changing. You might have seen different graphs. Okay, so if suppose it happens that at the end of say 3 months, this share price of this company has gone down to say rupees 450, then what would it mean? It would mean that at the end of 3 months, this person's worth is reduced to 45,000 from 50,000. So he has kind of lost 5,000 rupees. Okay, that is what is meant by losing money. Okay, so hedger does not want to take too much risk. Hedger always wants to protect his or her current investment. Of course, 100% protection is not possible. So hedger tries to find a strategy by which he can reduce his losses and he can maybe, get an upper bound on the losses. And that upper bound is a reasonable upper bound. Means he can decide that okay, I can afford losses up to this much. So I would make a strategy in such a way that my losses never exceed this. As I know it might still be unclear, but we are going to see a numerical example which would help things become more clear. But as I am saying, this is perfectly like insurance. What do you do when you purchase an insurance policy? For example, you are talking about pure term insurance. So in pure term insurance, you pay some premium, say every year, and you get the sum assured or whatever amount is decided in advance back from the company only if you die during the given term. What do you mean? So for example, say you are taking out a policy on your own life for rupees 50 lakh. So 50 lakh is sum assured. What does it mean? It means that, and let's say time period is 20 years. So it means that if you die in next 20 years, the insurance company is going to pay rupees 50 lakh to your dependents. Okay. For that, you are paying say rupees 5,000 per year. Okay. So what it means is, if you don't die at the end of 20 years, then this 5,000 per year that you paid for say 20 years, this amount is actually lost. So how much is this amount? 5,000 into 20 means it is 1 lakh rupees. So you have completely lost this 1 lakh rupees if you don't die within 20 years. But people are okay with this because this 1 lakh is a small amount compared to this 50 lakh, right? So if you die in between, then your family is going to suffer loss because you are dead, you are not going to be able to provide income to them. So your family is going to suffer a huge loss, and to compensate for that loss, you are purchasing this policy. So that you are saying that okay, I can pay rupees 5,000 every year. It's a small loss for me considering my income, and it's a certain loss. It's not uncertain. So I know that okay, I have to pay 5,000 every year, so I can keep it aside. So that when an uncertain event happens, like say death, then my family can rely on this money that the company is going to pay them. Okay. Now, some of you might have thought death is not an uncertain thing. Death is a certain event. Every one of us is going to die. No doubt about that. However, the uncertainty here is the time involved. We don't know when we are going to die. Are we going to die tomorrow, or are we going to die after 50 years? That we don't know. Okay. So the uncertainty is about time here, and that uncertainty is replaced by a small certain loss per year. So here the loss is certain, and the amount is certain, and you also know that when you are going to lose this money. You know that okay, say for example, if your premium is payable in December, you know that in every December you have to keep aside 5,000 rupees for this. Okay. So the uncertain big loss is being replaced by a series of small certain losses, and that's okay because you want that protection from uncertainty. That is exactly what hedger tries to do. So let us continue with this example. So suppose a person has 100 shares of a company and price of each share is 500 rupees, and he is afraid that over the period of next 3 months, the share prices of this company are most likely to go down. So he is afraid that at the end of 3 months, he may suffer a loss. Okay. Now when we say go down, they can go down to any value. So he feels that okay, currently he has 50,000. So some loss is okay. 10% loss, up to 10% loss is acceptable. Even in insurance, you are taking some loss. For example, the premium that you are going to pay is kind of like a loss. However, he is worried that if the prices fall below too much, then it's going to cause problem. So what this person does is, he goes into market and sees if there are any put options available. Do you remember what put option does? Put option gives you a right to sell a particular asset at a price that you have predetermined. Okay. So suppose he goes into the market, and goes means he doesn't have to physically go nowadays. Everything is online. So he finds that the put options are available for the share of the same company. Price of each put option is say rupees 3, or maybe 4. Price of each put option is say rupees 5. Okay. He has 100 shares. So what he does is, he buys 100 put options. So how much he has to pay? 500 rupees by paying rupees 500. So today he has paid 500 rupees to buy 100 put options, and the put options have suppose strike price of 460. Okay. Put options have strike price of 460. And let us assume that the time to maturity of that option, that is time to expiry, is 3 months. Now at the end of 3 months, different scenarios are possible. So the current share price was rupees 500, S0. So at the end of 3 months, ST, if share price is suppose 520. If share price is 520, then the shares prices have already gone up. So the person is not going to suffer any losses. His worth has increased to 52,000 actually. So he will not exercise the put options. Okay, he will not exercise the put option. So technically the initial price that he paid for put options, 500 rupees, that is lost. Okay, so that small loss is there. Okay, loss of 500 rupees. On the other hand, suppose share prices fall to 420 rupees. Then if the prices fall to 420 rupees, what he can do is he will exercise the put option at the end of 3 months. Exercise the put option means he would force the writer of the option to buy shares from him at 450 rupees, 460 rupees, because that was the strike price. Let me check. Yes, 460 is the strike price. So, okay, so what does it mean? He will earn 46,000 rupees by selling the shares at 460. So technically, yes, here also he has suffered a loss, but he has suffered loss of 4,000 rupees only, which he feels is acceptable. Okay, you can add price of put option, so it becomes 4500. Okay, here it was only 500. In fact, there was slightly benefit also. Now, okay, so what would have happened had he not purchased the put options? Let us consider in both scenarios. Here, if he didn't purchase put options, it's alright. In fact, he wouldn't even lose this 500 rupees. So, there is a possibility that he could have saved his 500 rupees, but of course there is uncertainty. We don't know for sure whether the prices are going to increase. On the other hand, if he hadn't purchased put options in this scenario, then he would have to sell his shares at 42,000 rupees. So his loss would be double. Okay. So there is no guarantee that outcome without hedging is always worse. Because here you can see that outcome without hedging might be better. You can save those 500 rupees that you spent on put option. So outcome with hedging might be worse than outcome without hedging. But in outcome with hedging, there is always an upper bound on loss. Okay, so here loss is at most 4,000 irrespective of whatever is ST. Okay, in fact, if things are very bad and ST goes to say 380, still this loss stays at 4,000 because he can always sell at 460. On the other hand, if he hadn't hedged, means if he hadn't purchased put options, then his loss would become 12,000. Okay. So, without hedging, there is no upper bound on the loss. Whereas if you hedge, there is an upper bound. So, here 4,000 is an upper bound on loss. Okay. Hence, people do hedging. So, those who don't want to take huge risks, they do hedging. So, they know that hedging can also lead to a loss, but that's a certain loss. So, whatever amount he invested in the put options, that amount plus this difference, original price minus strike price. So, the loss he can calculate that irrespective of ST. So, even if ST is unknown, he knows that the loss can be at most this. Okay. Whereas, if there is no hedging, means if no put options had been purchased, then the loss could go anywhere depending on what is ST. Okay. So, this is what hedger does. Hedger does trading to protect his or her current investments from loss. Okay. Now, let us move to the other type of trader. Who is other type of trader? There are people known as speculators. So, speculators are exactly opposite of hedgers. So, speculators are essentially gambling on the market movements. Okay. So, they are not really worried about protecting their asset. Their strategy is high risk, high gain. So, they are willing to take higher risk if there is a chance of higher gain. That is what speculators do. So, speculators have possibility of earning huge profits as well as possibility of suffering from huge losses, but they are okay with it. They just keep on gambling. Okay. Suppose a person has rupees 4,000 rupees which he or she wants to invest, and there are two possibilities. Shares of a certain company are available at rupees 40 per share, and call options on the shares of the same company are available at rupees 2 per call option. Okay, and the strike price for this call option is say rupees 45. Okay, now one option is okay. You have 40 rupees and you have 4,000 rupees and you can buy share 40 rupees per share, so buy 100 shares. Okay, now if you buy 100 shares, again there are two possibilities. At the end of say 3 months, let us assume that the period of call option is also 3 months. At the end of 3 months, the share prices could have either gone up or down. If suppose the share prices go up to say 60 rupees, then your income becomes 6,000. So initially you had invested 4,000. So if we ignore interest, you have a profit of 2,000 rupees. On the other hand, if the share prices go to 20 rupees, then your income becomes 2,000. You had initially invested 4,000. So you suffer a loss of 2,000 rupees. Okay. What happens in this second strategy? So suppose he wants to invest entire 4,000 rupees in call options. Then how many call options he or she can buy? They can buy 2,000 call options. Okay. Now what happens in both these scenarios? What happens if share prices go up or they down? If they go down to, again let us assume same number, 20 rupees, then call option won't be exercised, because if you are getting shares at 20 rupees in the market, you won't be paying 45 rupees. Call options won't be exercised means your entire 4,000 rupees is lost, because call options are now expired and there is no use. So your entire investment is gone. On the other hand, if the share prices go to 60 rupees, now you can exercise the call option, buy shares by paying 45 rupees for each share. And how many shares you can buy? 2,000, because you have said, because you are saying you have 2,000 call options. So buy shares and at the same time immediately sell them. Okay, so your profit would be 15 rupees per share and you have 2,000 such share. So you have 30,000 rupees as your profit. Okay. We assume that buying and selling can be done instantaneously, so you don't need money from anywhere else. You take money from a person, 60 rupees, out of that 60 you pay 45 to get a share, immediately give that share to the person. Okay. So see here, without this call options, means if you had gone for a normal strategy of investing your money in shares, your loss as well as profit both would have been within a certain range. Whereas if you go for call options, your loss is huge as well as your profit is huge. So this is the type of strategy that speculator generally follows. So they go for high gains. They try to go for high gains even if it involves high risk. Losing your entire investment, even though it feels like just 4,000 rupees, is a problem because you are losing 100% of your investment. So you don't have any money left for further investments. Okay, so even if the amount 4,000 feels small, you have to remember that it's 100% loss. That was the money you had initially to begin with. Okay, so this is what speculators do. They try to gamble on the market movements and they are willing to take higher risk if there is a chance of high gains. Okay. And now the third type of trader. What does the third type of trader do? So the name of the trader is arbitrager. We have already seen what is the meaning of the word arbitrage, right? Arbitrage is a chance of risk-free profit. So arbitrager basically tries to locate such opportunities. So tries to locate the arbitrage opportunities and tries to make profits from it. So arbitrager is never willing to take any risk. He or she is never willing to lose any of their own invested money. They are always trying to locate arbitrage opportunities in the market. Okay, so can they do short selling and earn risk-free profit? So let us take again one scenario. We have to remember that arbitrage opportunities would exist only if short selling is allowed. So we are assuming that the short selling is allowed. Suppose spot price for share of a certain company is say rupees 20, okay, and call option for the share of the same company is available with expiry duration of 1 year at rupees 3. Okay, this is slightly what do we say, unreasonable situation. Call options, put options are generally sold for short durations like 1 month, 3 months, etc. But to simplify the calculations, I am taking 1 year here. And let us assume that interest rate is 10% per annum. 10% per annum means we can take it as 0.1. Okay. Now, we are saying that short selling is allowed. So let us see if by short selling and call option, some such strategy where risk-free profit is possible can be designed. Now, how do you think about it? First of all, see, what is available in the market is call option. Call option is available means if today I buy a call option, at the end of 1 year, I am going to have a right to buy the share. Okay. So maybe today I borrow the share, sell it, that is basically the definition of short sell, and then using that money buy a call option, and then at the end of 1 year exercise my call option to get the share back and return the share. Okay, that is one possible strategy. So let us see what happens. So today we short sell a share. Short sell a share means you borrow share from someone who already owns it and sell it. So you get rupees 20 by short selling a share. Out of that 20, use rupees 3 to buy call option. Why should you buy call option? Because at the end of 1 year, you need to return the share. So you need to buy back the share. And if you don't invest today in call option, then the price of share may go may go anywhere. So if it's very high, you may have to use your own money to buy the share, which you don't want to do. You're an arbitrager, so you don't want to use your own money. Okay. So use rupees 3 to buy call option. So how much money is remaining? 17 rupees is remaining. So put these 17 rupees in bank for 1 year. Because now you are not going to need them immediately. You are going to need at the end of 1 year to buy back the share. So 17 rupees in bank in 1 year becomes 17 into 1.1 because we are assuming 10% interest rate. Okay. If we assume usual compound interest, okay, no continuous compounding. With continuous compounding, it is going to be even higher. So that's your homework. Try what happens with continuous compounding. So this becomes 18.7 rupees. Okay, 18.7 rupees. Oh, what I forgot to mention is strike price for call option. Suppose strike price for call option is 18 rupees. So at the end of 1 year, what happens? There are two possibilities. The market price is less than 18 rupees and the market price of the share is greater than 18 rupees. If the market price is greater than 18 rupees, the call option I will exercise. I have 18.7 rupees coming from bank. Out of that, I will use 18 rupees to buy the share. I will return the share, buy the share and return it. And this 0.7 rupees is purely now my profit. I don't have to give that money to anyone. Because I got the share from a person, I borrowed the share, I sold the share, got the money, did something and gave the share back. So as long as I give the share back, I don't have to worry about anything else. So this 0.7 rupees is now purely mine. Okay. On the other hand, if ST had been less than 18, if the market price is less than 18, then I won't exercise call option. Okay. But in the market, we can get at a price less than 18. So we use that 18.7, actually some amount from that 18.7 to buy from the market. And we know this is now greater than 0.7 because ST is less than 18. Okay. So here also I have a profit and in fact a larger profit. Okay. So irrespective of whether ST is less than 18 or ST is greater than 18, in both the scenarios we are getting a profit. So this is an arbitrage opportunity. No risk. Whatever may be the market movement, we are always in the profit. Okay. Now you might be thinking 0.7 rupees means 70 paise is a very small profit, but I am talking about one share. I can do this for say 1000 shares. If I do this for 1000 shares, I am going to get 700 rupees, which is not bad. It's a pure profit. Okay. So this is what arbitrageurs do. They don't use their own money. They just use the short selling and appropriate strategies to earn risk-free profit. Okay. So this is how three different traders work. Hedgers try to protect their own investment. They use their own money to protect the investment. So they may suffer small losses, but as long as the losses are within reasonable bounds, they are okay with them. Speculators try to take risks and gamble on the market movements, whereas arbitrageurs try to find opportunities for risk-free profits. Okay. Let me stop here. Thank you.